can hear him. There he is.
Yay.
Hello,
mate.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
I thought I'd done something wrong then because I saw the time ticking past. I thought, oh.
No.
Yeah, you fucked up big time.
Yeah,
mate.
yeah. Yeah, I've had enough. Yeah.
How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. I'm just waiting for the door to go for Gemma's on her way back. So if I suddenly look up and look uninterested, I'm not. I'm just checking the door. Sorry about that. As amateurish as ever.
Everyone's very excited here on the chat here. So
okay,
yeah,
good.
We'll go straight into mental health. Why not? We met, I don't know, when did we meet? It was 2014 something.
Yeah, I mean, we met before on the occasional festival or something, right?
Yeah.
I know we played a show. We opened for you.
Yeah, you did. You did. What was it? The Indigo at the O2.
Yes. Yeah.
When I still lived in England, way back when. So
yeah.
I don't think you spoke to me then.
No, I was being all arrogant and aloof. No, I would have loved to, but I think I was just a bit shy, which often comes across as being extremely arrogant and aloof.
I know that, yeah.
Yeah, you know that. So, no, but I would have loved it. I think we went very quickly somewhere else over to Germany or something. I think we were playing it was in the middle of a tour or something.
I don't even, it's a blur.
It's all a blur. But anyway, the first time we actually got to meet properly, I think you came to a show and played in Fonda in LA. You and Gemma came backstage and then
yes.
And I was kind of nervous, and then you were really funny, so I was like, oh, he's all right actually. I really like this guy. So I think we bonded really, really, really quickly, and within a year I was sleeping on your couch in LA. You couldn't get me out of your house.
Couldn't get rid of you then. No?
Yeah, I know. So you were very kind to help me then. At that time, I was still resonating from my own issues that I'd had.
Yeah, I remember.
I went into a bit of a hole around 2013-14, which sort of propelled me to move to LA. And we had quite a few conversations, I think, in your house about your own struggles. Or I was probably just blabbing about my struggles more than yours. But you know, we never actually went into that much detail. So this is fascinating for me anyway, to know exactly what happened with you, when it happened, how it sort of played out. And I remember you mentioned it a lot, but we never had the time to go into the details. But when did you first sort of have that kind of awareness of a mental health crisis?
It was kind of explained to me rather than I felt different. I was brilliantly arrogant in that I thought everybody else was weird except me. And I thought everybody else was wrong and everybody else had a problem. And I was the only normal person in the world. And I absolutely believed that. I really did. Still do to a degree.
I'm with you on that one.
That's a pretty lonely existence, isn't it?
But I was getting
horrible.
I don't know. I was getting into lots of trouble at school, all behavioural things, and I was quite bright. You know, I did the 11 plus and went off to grammar school, and I was my mum and dad were very hopeful that academically I was going to have something to fall back on, as they said, should the music thing not work out. And so it was a great disappointment to them to see me getting into trouble. And I was put on a report, and, you know, they made me do a year twice, which is more for humiliation, I think, than anything else, to try to shock you into coming online. And there was nothing malicious about what I was doing. It was just, I just was not interested in it. And I was very rebellious against any kind of authority that I thought was being used badly or unfairly. So I was often, having problems with various teachers and so on. Anyway, the end of all that was they sent me to a child psychologist to find out what was going on with me. Really bad temper as well. I used to fight, and I'm pretty small, but I would fight and get into stuff a lot, at the drop of a hat, really. I wasn't vicious. No, I wasn't vicious and bullying people, nothing like that. But the wrong comment at the wrong time, and I would just go for it. And so anyway, they sent me this child psychologist who had this revolting habit of blowing snot into a tissue and putting it in the bin while he was talking to you.
Oh God!
That was, that was pretty off-putting. So didn't get on with him too well. But I went to see him for, I can't remember how long now, but for a while. And eventually, I remember his name, but I won't say it because he's probably got family stuff. But he eventually said, I don't really know. So he recommended me to a hospital in London called St Thomas's. Oh. The St Thomas's Child Psychiatric Unit, I think it was, or something like that. So I would go there, and again, not for too long, but childishly at the time. I think I was about 14, 15, maybe 14. To me, it was just a way of getting out of school, because I didn't think there was anything wrong with me. I thought teachers were annoying, fair enough. Other people said some things that they needed a punch for, fair enough. Everything made sense to me. It all made sense. There was nothing wrong with me. Anyway, so I get to St Thomas's, and eventually, and this is where it's a problem, because I wasn't that interested in why I was there. I was just having a day off school. I didn't pay that much attention to what was said, unfortunately, and I regret that now very, very much. But I do remember at one point the lady doctor talked about Asperger's, and it was floated as being a possibility and so on. And I remember that when we were coming home from that, my mum was really offended by that. She seemed to see that, I don't think she knew what it was, I don't think she understood it. And she seemed to see that as an attack on her parenting. As a parent, she thought it was an attack on her. Obviously didn't understand it at all. Yeah. And so that was pretty much it. We might have gone back once or twice after that, but it was, my mum thought that wasn't going to help, kind of brushed it under the carpet. They put me on 2 drugs, one called Nardil and Valium. That was the other 2 for about a year to keep me calm. And then that was it. And then it was never really mentioned again. And I don't think the criteria for Asperger's was established until well into the 80s.
Yeah.
Long after, which was a few years after I was going. So, that's why it's very confusing to me as to exactly what it was and so on. But that was it. And so until more recently, the whole thing just went away, really. Yeah. And it was only more recently that when I met Gemma, which about 29 years ago, so not that recent.
That recent?
It feels recent.
Fairly recent.
Just like yesterday. But she has a brother that's got Asperger's, properly diagnosed with Asperger's, and she saw it in me. And so we started to explore it a little bit more together. And I did some various tests, but I've never been actually diagnosed with it. And then, with the internet, I did online stuff, and I would always fall right in the middle of the spectrum that covers Asperger's. Yeah. And so I've always accepted that I have it, never had it, and I've never had a problem with it. I think it gives me a huge amount of things that I wouldn't have otherwise that are very, very useful, especially for being in the music business. So that was that. But I've not been formally diagnosed, so I have to make that clear. And then definitely more recently, I started to have panic attacks and had a real problem with getting old. And I couldn't look at old people in the street without getting upset. I'd start crying. I'd be sitting in my car, in a car park somewhere, waiting for Gemma to come back. And I'd see an old couple walk past. I get properly upset, tears and everything. Oh, that's not right. Just real weird fear about getting old and getting close to death and how you handle that. And couldn't understand how old people could handle that, because when you're on the doorstep of moving on. How can you be at peace with that? And it really bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
When I crossed 50, actually, that was the turning point for me. And then, so anyway, eventually it got so bad that Gemma said I really should go to a doctor and find out why this is happening, the panic attacks, because they were getting more severe and more frequent. And he said there were, for any situation like that, there is always an underlying depression, which is the core of all of those sorts of problems. No, I don't know if that's true or not. I never researched that, but I just took his word for it. They put me on, I think it was citalopram to start with, which leveled me out, but just made me permanently miserable, unfortunately. So it stopped all the mood swings. Yeah, I didn't get on with it at all. And he put me on another one called, I'll get confused with my hay fever tablets because it starts with a, I think it's called, I think it's
same thing, right?
Really, medication names should be much easier, right? It should just be named by
Stop your weeping,
Stop my weeping, anyway, so whatever that, I think it's called venlafaxine, but I can't remember for sure. And that was great. I'd always been moody my whole life. I've been extremely up and down. To the point it could be within the middle of a sentence, literally in the middle of. I could be chatting to you, and I'd feel it halfway through a sentence. It was as if somebody just turned a valve, and a whole load of misery just poured out, and you would go down. Been my whole life like that, and so what made it more wearing was they were not in sync with reality. Your ups and your downs were completely separate to the life that you were living. You could be having a great day, going out, doing something fantastic, and then it would happen, and you go, and it was horrible for me, very wearing. Mentally, it just wears you out after years and years of that. Difficult for the people that you're with, difficult for your partners, your parents, because you're just so unpredictable. And I think when you're younger, certainly when you're a teenager, I think there's a certain assumption that you're doing that for effect, or you're doing that for attention, and there's nothing like that at all. Never went to see anyone about it. It was never treated, which is really interesting to me because I had two of my children, one in particular, are both having issues at the minute. One of them has just been diagnosed with something, which I won't talk about if you don't mind, because that's her private thing.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
But it's a big deal, and it makes me think about what was happening to me when I was younger, and that it was never discovered, never treated. And so I've spent my whole life up until fairly recently in this sort of out of sync, volatile, moody, up and down kind of state. And it was rubbish, absolutely rubbish. So then I get to being diagnosed as depressed, and they give me the tablets, and all of that levels out. And it was amazing, absolutely amazing. And I loved it. And it was so seductive, because I'd never been like that. I'd never been level, absolutely not, and I really liked it. It wasn't as if I was happy. I wasn't permanently happy. I was just level. And just that.
So you didn't feel like it was dumbing you down or anything, or numbing you. It was more like you just didn't have this the surprises of the.
Initially, initially it was just a lovely feeling of even, because those mood swings were a nightmare, and I lived with them because I just thought that was normal, but it wasn't. And when they went away, the quality of life was so different, was so much better, and I loved it. The trouble was, it was so seductive. I didn't want to come out of it. I wanted to stay there forever. And then it started to dumb me down.
Right.
I stayed on them for so long, way past probably when I should have come out, that I stopped caring. I had this brilliantly sort of happy-go-lucky attitude, which is the opposite of what I'm really like. I'm quite thoughtful, and I think, great things would happen. It was all right. Really horrible things would happen. Like we were doing Coachella, and that volcano went up, the Icelandic volcano. We couldn't fly. I'm spitting on the computer. Couldn't fly. It's not good for it. So we lost Coachella. Amazing. And I had gigs planned around that. And it was a really, really huge opportunity. And when it was decided that we couldn't go, I just went, oh, okay. Didn't give a shit. Didn't give a shit, you know.
Uh-huh.
And even I thought, that's not right. I probably should be giving a little bit of a shit. And so at that point, it started to become a bit of a problem. And friends of mine did intervention. They took me down to a pub and sat, you know, we had a meal, and they talked about I hadn't written songs for quite a while. You know, the career was beginning to get flaky. Gemma was upset, and at the end of it, they said, "Well, you know, what do you think about that?" And I hadn't been listening. I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I was thinking about kittens," which was true. I just didn't care. And do you know what shook me out of it eventually was vanity. Vanity. Gemma said to me at one point, she said, "You are not what you were." She said, "You got no ambition, you got no drive, you just drifting along." And she said, "I don't even find you very attractive anymore." That did it.
That hit. Okay.
Yeah, hit my ego. I'm right back in it. So, it was that comment.
I love it. Isn't it funny?
Thank God for the ego.
What the things are that trigger you, right? Thank God.
Yeah, you can always rely on ego for a musician, can't you?
Yeah.
Did you consider the dosage? I mean, did you think, okay, maybe it just has to be less, or you know, because some people kind of stay on it their whole lives and they do well with that, but you just thought you got to get off and
well, to be
back to being
one of the problems I had,
again.
I'd already upped it, you see.
Right.
Because I was enjoying being on it so much. I thought if I do a bit more, I might feel even better.
I wish it worked like that.
I know, it's not how it works. Yeah.
But you know what? I went to the doctor and suggested it to him. I did, and he just said, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah.
There was no guidance or warning, or you know, maybe you should be going the other way. Maybe you should be coming back. They just put you on them, and they just left me. So if it hadn't been for Gemma, really, well, all of my friends actually, but Gemma in particular was as always, was really sharp and really on it and was brilliant and found that way of getting through to me. And so we started the slow weaning off of them, which of course was a little bit more difficult because I'd up the doses. So I was on a relatively high one. So it took a while, and I was terrified, absolutely terrified. You know, as soon as I felt the moods beginning to move again, freaked me out. Did not want to go back to that. I really didn't want to go back to it. I'm genuinely frightened of it. But I was aware. Now, I wasn't writing songs. Nothing was bothering me. So there was no desire to want to write because you didn't care about anything. You know, you normally write about things you care about, things that bother you, and there wasn't any. So, you know, I was aware of that. But I remember when those moods first started to reappear, being properly frightened. But the good thing, what's happened since I've come off them, and I'm now, you know, I've been pill-free for a long, long time. Antidepressant pill-free. It synced everything. My moods have never been out of sync since I came off the pills. So it actually, and I don't know if that's a feature of what they do, and I've never read that. It did for me. It put my moods completely in sync with reality. So I don't have that weird up and down. Nor do I have the extremes of up and down, to be fair. I mean, all of that's gone. I get happy and sad now when I should.
Do you think that could that be a psychological effect? Is it something that you woke up to, you know, by not necessarily? I mean, I can't imagine that physiologically the pills would do that, but maybe you had a bit of a personal awakening and realized, you know, subconsciously that you had to.
It's possible, I
be
guess.
Aware of that, or I wonder.
It might be. It could be, but my only memory of it is expecting to go back to what I had before. So I didn't have any expectation of things being better.
Right.
Quite the opposite. So there was nothing going on up there that should have sort of prepared me for a different way of being, sort of, as far as moods were concerned, and that sort of cyclic nature of the moods. So I'm not sure if that would happen or not. I keep meaning to look into it, and you know, you get busy and you forget. But I will at one point. I'll look into it and find out if that is a known effect.
Yeah.
So you didn't combine pills with therapy. You didn't have a kind of a course of therapy that interesting.
No,
Wow.
I've never. Oh God, I don't mean to speak bad of therapy because Gemma's been there and my kids are there. And I think it's very, very valuable. It's just for me, I've never really. I think as I've got older, I've got more faith in it now. I've certainly got more faith in it today than I had 10, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, I had none as a young man.
Yeah,
there's way more research now as well that helps to kind of be more open to it, I guess,
Yes, I believe that actually. There's a thing I'm reading. I bought a book with me. I'm reading about a thing called dialectic behavioural therapy.
Yeah. Which we had
we had two people on that talked about it.
Yeah, specialised in that. Yeah,
that sounds pretty impressive. It's particularly important to me because it's relevant to one of my kids. So I'm learning about that now because I feel like a lot of these therapies, it can't just be therapist to person or child. In my case, the family had to be involved. I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing to back up what the therapy is doing. So I can't be the normal dad that I've been in the past.
Right.
If they do something wrong, they get shouted at. Or you take their phone off them or whatever pathetic punishments you've got. Because I'm a bit.
Yeah.
I can't be that now. I've got to be far more intelligent about it and learn and understand that there are, just as I expected when I was younger. You need to be treated a certain way, or you're going to go. You're just going to kick off.
Yeah.
I knew that, and I've sort of forgotten it with my own kids a little bit. I've just been a normal dad. You do something wrong, you get told off for it, without really exploring why that's happening. So.
It's amazing that you're exploring that, though, because that is, that's so essential that the parents know, learn those behaviors that seem very unusual at first, but that's the only stuff that helps, right?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be. When we talk about therapy, you can sort of pick apart therapy. One is the kind of Freudian. Let's talk about your childhood and deconstruct all of that and what happened to you. And then there's the other one, which is just reprogramming behavioral habits. So it's like taking something like dialectic or cognitive behavioral therapy is it's literally just setting rules. It's like coaching in a way, right? I mean, it's a sort of higher form of coaching. So with things like Asperger's and ADHD, which you found recently, that you just need a certain set of rules to reprogram your behavioral habits, right?
And way that as well. Like what Gary just mentioned, where Gemma said to you, you're not really attractive anymore, and that's what gave you the motivation, right? It's the same with me. They're like the weirdest things that. Oh wait, we have what's going on with our internet?
Are we still there?
Yeah, still fine. It's the weirdest things that will make me understand certain things about my behavior, or that to others wouldn't make sense, but my coach knows what to say, and just she's one of the first people I've ever talked to where everything she says always makes sense, and I was like, wow, it's possible, because she knows, she knows how to word things, and so it helps so much when the people around you know of your condition and how they can help.
Well, I think it helps them too. So,
the people around you.
If you're just constantly frustrated with somebody's bad behavior and not knowing what it is, then it just fucking drives you crazy, right? But if you know what it is, then you can at least put a different, angle on it and accept, not necessarily accept it, but understand it at least. And that's one step closer to not going
that's true.
Crazy, right?
Yes, absolutely true. I think it's very easy to, if you don't really understand and have sympathy for what's going on and a desire to want to fix it and help, which not everyone does, unfortunately. I think you can do a great deal of damage. You can undo all the good work that's going on this side. You can undo it on this side. So I'm very, very, I'm really nervous about it, and I'm really trying to learn as much as I possibly can to make sure that I do everything I can to help her on this way, on this little journey that she's on now, because it is a big deal and it's a big problem.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the person that's constantly lighting a match and igniting these things. Because if you can find a way around that, you've got a really lovely human being, but it's just got some issues in certain areas. That's what kind of is getting in the way of that. So it's your absolute duty as a parent to find the best way you possibly can to help your kids with whatever they've got, from doing their homework to, to sorting out any kind of mental health issues. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, I mean, God, if you also, if you're struggling with your own Asperger's, then I'm sure those triggers are compounded.
Yes.
Or,
right.
You've already got your own triggers to deal with, and then, I can imagine.
Yeah, it is. I remember talking about therapists, though. It's also really important to, like, you found one, Janine, that you're really, really happy with and you trust. That's massively important. It's a quick story. Some years ago, Gemma was having some problems and she was sent off to a CBT person. At one point during one of their sessions, I would ask her how it was when she got home, and she always struggled to sort of remember the detail of what was said. And so she said to her therapist, would you mind if Gary come along so that he can just see what's being said and hear? I didn't ask for that. Gemma wanted me there because it just saved her the bother of trying to explain it all to me. The therapist got it into her head that I was therefore a control freak, and I insisted on being there. And that was the line of their discussion for the next 2 sessions until Gemma said, this is pointless. So you get the wrong one. That gets this little fixated idea about what the problem is. And they're more harm than good.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's you have to really, we talk about this. She's back. Okay. Hello, Gemma Bobs in the background. She lives.
Oh.
It looks like
come on the screen, Gemma. Come on the screen.
You wouldn't want to see it just at the minute. Give it another couple of weeks. Looks like she's been beaten up.
Oh.
You wife beater, Gary. Are you a wife beater?
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
If anyone gets beaten, it's me.
It's probably you.
She's all right. At least she's walking. It's better than last time.
Oh shit! What was I? I was saying something incredible. What was that?
Something really deep and powerful.
I know, which is just my daily routine. Right?
I was talking about that CBT person that was not good.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. It's we had I think each podcast we've talked about the importance of finding the right therapist, shopping around, and not being shy about grilling them on what it is they're going to offer. And
it's quite tough because when you need a therapist, that means you are kind of in a weak state, right? And you just want help and you want someone strong there for you, but then you having to be strong and asking lots of questions to a person and maybe feeling, like you're not being polite or whatever, overcoming all of these things. It's tough. It's not easy.
To overcome first and then get into your healing.
Yeah, but I mean, if you find the right person, it's magical. It really, it's
magical.
Magical.
Well,
it is because changes. It changes your life quality forever. It can.
No, I think it's really important, but it is a really difficult thing to get right because, as you say, you go there because you know there's something wrong. I think there is an element in all of us to perhaps not particularly like what some people say, whether it's accurate or not, and to not know whether it's accurate. So, it's so difficult to decide, is this the right person or not? And some of it would just come down to relationship. Do you simply get on with them? You know, are they approachable? Can you talk freely about the things you want to talk about?
Yeah.
So I think, again, with one of my children, you know, we've been very, very lucky in that she's incredibly perceptive. You know, she sees that we sit down with her expecting to have to give her lots of pointers as to, you know, other things that go on behind the scenes.
Right.
And she don't need them. She's already spotted all these little markers. So that gives you a lot of confidence. She really is looking, for one thing, carefully, and is very perceptive. And so you begin to build a fairly deep trust in that person, that this is the right person to help and get us all through. You know, because we've all got to get. It's not just, you know, my daughter that's got to get through it. We all have, because it affects the whole family. So it's something that we're all involved with.
You're all autistic geniuses.
Yeah,
funny. I think one of the reasons why I probably connect so is because I was also quite recently kind of diagnosed with spectrum autism. Like a high functioning form of it. I like to add the high functioning part just so I feel a bit better about myself.
You still have autism.
Yeah. So
it's a fact.
Yeah, but you know, certain things. I know Asperger's is kind of a form of autism, but how you describe that you know, just seeing the world as this is your truth and everybody else is wrong. I really connect with that. There's this sort of even though I know it's right, I still can't let it go. I still think that I'm right on certain things, and I've learned to kind of soften that in social situations, of course.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a burden. But it's also a kind of superpower and a driving force, as you said. I think it can, you know, propel you into being either hyper focused or hyper obsessed, either creatively or so. I do think there's a huge benefit to it if it's.
I do. Yeah.
And the more you become aware, the more you kind of facilitate it in your life, you can maybe be more at peace or work with it better. But it's that you know, that sort of those explosive moments of something happening where you're just kind of triggered beyond reality for no particular reason, but it feels totally real and existential to you in that moment. That's also been my life. I think it's been a little different or softer than yours. This is probably why I connect so much with you. But it's only really recently that I've started to understand that this has actually been the cause of many of my depressions and anxieties and insomnia over the years. It's not necessarily the cause, but I mean, they can come in tandem with each other, but
in a nice little package.
They come in a beautiful package. You know, you get 3 for the price of 1. It's great. And so, but it was only really recently, and we talk about the reason why I brought that up is because my therapist, who I've worked with since 2014 for years now, he hadn't really brought it up, but he'd suspected, and people around me had suspected, and we decided to do the tests, and it kind of came out. It wasn't strong, but it was kind of, as you said, like in the middle there somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I'm now exposing this to the world.
Well, you know, Greta Thunberg. She talks about her Asperger's as a superpower.
Yeah,
I think that's just the way to look at it. I mean, I've always referred to it as a gift, but it's the same thing. You know, it gives you things that I don't like to say the word normal person, but you know, a
neurotypical.
It gives us things that those people largely don't have. You know, the people talk about being obsessive as if it's a problem. I don't see it as a problem. Being obsessive about what you do is a very good thing. If I'm flying an aeroplane, I want the pilot to be obsessive about being a pilot.
It's true.
It's really important that they really, really love and know what they're doing, and I just live, eat, and drink it. That's what you want. With a music career, it's an absolute advantage to be obsessive and to be hyper focused on things. More than that, the ability to be able to compartmentalize emotions and just I'll worry about that later. For now, I'm going to just put it to one side. Keep going because it's getting in the way. So
I'm so jealous of that one. So jealous.
That's
my emotions just
I wasn't so clear on that until that thing happened recently. Recently I found a neighbour dead. Yeah, he'd OD'd, and he just lives across the way, and I was really, I was shocked at how okay I was with it.
Yeah.
Didn't really want to crowbar that in there, but I did anyway. I think that was a really good example of something that perhaps would be traumatic for neurotypical people, but I didn't find it traumatic.
It's interesting, isn't it?
So
I think you didn't find it traumatic because you could it was in a way it just was what it was for you, right? I mean, you knew he had struggled with drugs his whole life. So for you, it was like, it probably would have happened at some point.
It was the inevitability and the finality of it was kind of, it was just settled quickly in my mind. I didn't feel like I had to think any more about it. It was purely his thing. And there was nothing that I could add to this situation.
Yeah.
I mean, after I checked that he was dead.
It was really interesting to see how you reacted, because I wasn't sure if you were just pushing your emotions to the side and they would come out.
I wasn't sure either.
Point. Yeah. But it really wasn't that. You really just made sure there's nothing you can do. You called the police. You did all the right things. And you were calm in it. And I mean, it's not that you didn't care, though. That's the important thing. That's how it could come across, right?
No, that is the important thing, because it isn't that you don't care.
No, not at all.
It's quite the opposite. I mean, I've often said to Gemma that I think people like us feel more. It's the way we process it differently. That's the difference, I wouldn't want that experience, obviously, but I do think the way we deal with things is different. I have seen or had experienced so many.
Can you tell Gemma to shut up?
Wait, keep it down.
Bloody hell!
Unbelievable.
Keep it down, wifey.
This is the Numan's reality show. I love it.
Oh, we've been asked to do one, funny enough. But
have you? Didn't you do that? You almost did it in the past, right?
No, almost, yeah. But they wanted to script it, and I can't be doing that, But anyway, there might be another one in the wings now.
Oh my God.
That
might be a great form of family therapy in a way. That might be.
Oh my God! Don't do it, please don't.
Get it all out.
We are so non-PC though. The things that you say at home. So I don't think we could. Not me so much, but Gemma is just a nightmare for saying the wrong thing.
It would just be beep 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 beep.
Yeah.
I do think that my life would be incredibly different, given the Asperger's nature of me, if I was with someone else, or if I wasn't with anyone. She is has been an absolutely amazing bonus in my life, and has helped me through all these things that we're talking about, all of that, so much of that has been better. All of it has been better and helped because of her understanding and patience and intelligence and an application of what needs to be done. She's an absolute, I don't believe in God, but she's an absolute godsend.
Yeah, well, she keeps you in line, right?
But if she keeps on looking like that, she's out.
Well, stop beating her up then.
It's a simple solution, right?
Oh God. Oh, okay. So, wow, we managed to cram a lot in there, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're in a good place now? I mean, aside from the challenges of fatherhood, which obviously would be multiple triggers every day, all day. But aside from that,
obviously,
do you feel okay?
I do, actually.
Good.
Yeah, but more now than ever. I think the fact that the moodiness and the switching has gone away has made a huge difference to my life, and that's probably been about 8 or 9 years now. The difference of that, the peace that's given me, I can't tell you the difference that it's made. If I'd have known that, going on antidepressants would have done that, then I'd have, Christ, I'd have done it when I was 15, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's life changing, man. It's absolutely life changing. And I think that's given me a calm and just more capacity to think about what's and not be sort of drawn and up and down all over the place. I can just think now, and it helps. It helps with the writing. It helps with life. It helps with relationships, dealing with problems. Of which there are still many, obviously, but it makes a huge difference to have a more tranquil kind of brain.
I think that's great. It's great to hear that coming from you, because a lot of people are very skeptical about psychopharmacology and antidepressants and things like that. And it gets such a bad rep, but I totally agree with it. It doesn't have to be for the rest of your life thing. It can be intermittent. It can be when and as you need it.
As and when.
As and when. Sorry.
Yeah.
I
think the thing is that
German.
It's really important to make sure that the diagnosis that they're treating you for is accurate.
Yes.
There's a great deal of misdiagnosis and pills being poured into people for the wrong thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that contributes enormously to this feeling that they don't really do much, or that we're over prescribed, which is the dangerous thing. And I think it helps to create this feeling of uncertainty or mistrust about being medicated for certain mental health issues. Again, because I've been reading up a lot lately because of what's happening to my children, I'm learning a great deal about those kind of problems. It's featured heavily in the books that I'm reading. The danger of misdiagnosis and therefore mistreatment, misprescribed pills. So it is important. But again, as an individual that's suffering, what do you know? You've gone to an expert, they've said something, you go with that, and it turns out to not be the right thing. So, I think perhaps, I don't know how practical it is, but if your therapist or psychiatrist is talking about prescribing something, maybe go and see another one before, just to make sure that's the right thing, because again, it can do more harm than good if it's not for your problem. And there are some things where it doesn't, you are looking at behavior therapy as the main reason, as the main fix for what you've got. Because I think medication for most things is fantastic, but there are some things where it has little effect. But you still need something. This is where dialectic comes in, as you know, and there's other therapies that can help. But I think, generally, as I understand it, the majority of things you can be helped.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. It is a little bit of a woolly area, so that you have to have a level of knowing and strength to change and to be prepared to sort of have patience to try other things and not put too much emphasis on the first thing that you try. I mean, I personally had experience with that, where the first antidepressant I tried didn't really work, made me fat, didn't like it. Can
you imagine?
Sleepy and fat.
Chris.
No. You don't want to see that. It's freakish. Please don't get that picture out of your heads, everybody. You don't want to be thinking like that. But it very quickly, sort of over a matter of a year or two, I realized that I should try something else, and the second thing worked, third thing didn't, went back to the second, worked, it was great. And just sort of knowing, being careful with the information, the data that you allow in. If you go to these sites and read up about drugs, and they get like 6 out of 10, and then there's got these reviews where people say, I did it for a week and it was shit and it made me want to kill people or whatever it was. Do more research. Those people didn't get to the point of experiencing the benefits of that drug. So that's where those, check out the proper reviews, but it is, they can really help you. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Ta-da.
Ta-da. Wasn't that a little sort of fanfare at the end?
Yeah.
It felt like that was a summing up, wasn't it?
This is a bit of a summing up. Yeah. Right, I'm off my soapbox now. Should we ask him some questions?
Yeah. Do you have a little more time for us, Gary, to ask some questions that have been submitted here?
No,
okay. So so people submitted questions before we started, but also while we were talking. So I'll just pick a few and see what's there. Just scrolling through them. Master Genius, Christopher. Yeah. Where is one? I don't know. No, let's. I'm just going to start with this one. Yeah. There's no name, but it looks like it's a guy on the picture. So anyway, question. I find it extremely courageous to talk about yourselves in the public. What is the first motivation that comes to mind as to why you, Chris, Janine, and Gary are talking about mental health? I might guess in doing so, you let regular people know that you're not all that different than us. But is it a sort of therapy to simply discuss these things in a forum such as this? Thank you all.
First of all, I don't think there's anything shameful about it, so it shouldn't take courage. I don't feel courageous in the slightest talking about it. I would as easily talk about this as I would talk about having a headache or having a facelift. Don't care, And I think beyond that, I do think there is a great deal of stigma attached to mental health, and people, I don't know if it's a particularly British thing or not, but there is certainly a lot of people that won't talk about it or feel uncomfortable talking about it, or wouldn't talk about it with their mates, but they might with their wife. That whole weird thing about it. So it's obviously seen amongst enough people that it's kind of a frowned upon, shameful thing. And I just don't understand that. So if by us talking about it, I remember when the last album, when Savage came out, no, it wasn't Savage, one before Savage, actually, it was called Splinter, which I ripped off from you, obviously.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Yeah, no problem. Credit where credit's due. But that was all about the depression and being in it, getting out of it, the damage that it caused. And so when that album came out, and the media will invariably ask you what it's about, and I just went straight for it. This is what it's about. It's all about my mental problems and being depressed and all of that. And I expanded. Gemma was depressed before I was, and blah blah blah. And it all started with postnatal depression. Sorry. And how it just grew into this thing and became something else, and how outside factors affected it. It was, I was just absolutely open about the whole thing. And I people saying then, oh, didn't think you'd be talking about that. I thought, well, why would you not? Why would you be ashamed of that? It's not as if you've done anything wrong. You've not done anything to be ashamed of. You just got this problem. And then you find out that loads of people have got it. Friends of mine were on antidepressants and hadn't told me until I told them that I was. And it's went, oh yeah, I've been on them for a couple of years. What?
Wow.
I've known you all your life, and you've just, why? Because you're ashamed of it. Why were you ashamed?
Maybe.
It's so
do you think
ridiculous.
it's also because people think they'll bother you? They don't want to burden you with.
It's who knows? It's just society. Look, everybody's fucking depressed. We're all gonna die, right? So
that's depressing.
It's not a very nice thought. So look, it's okay. So why does society? It's like sex. It's like all of these things that people just kind of tuck away. It's too visceral. It's too weird to talk about. It's too emotional. There's pride, there's bravado, there's it's probably male-led. It's kind of our duty, I think, people in our position, which has always been the artist's position, to talk about the stuff that other people don't talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why art exists in a way. There's just another level of it. I remember hearing Splinter and it blew me away. I loved that album. Not my album, yours.
I love yours.
And I could feel all of that in there. But it's not just about sort of describing pain and anguish. Putting it into record, putting it into that format is about evolving and releasing yourself from it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do that and also help people, or at least make yourself relatable to more people, then surely it's a no-brainer. I don't see why you wouldn't talk about that stuff. Just because you're not talking about babes and drugs and sex and rock and roll and all of that shit, which is boring now. I mean, we live in a modern world.
I had friends coming to me talking about their marriages breaking up, the kids are in trouble, all these different really personal things, which as a friend, you're kind of sort of honoured in a way to put involved in. I get a little bit scared of it because I'm not particularly good emotionally, but nonetheless, it's an honour for somebody to trust you with that kind of information.
Yeah.
To then find out that these same people are on antidepressant pills and didn't want to talk about it. So you're happy to talk about your wife running off with someone, but you don't want to tell me you're taking the pill because you're a bit depressed.
Yeah.
What is this?
I don't know. It's society sort of paints this picture of it as mental weakness, right? Some kind of weakness.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. We've got to get over that, destigmatize that ridiculous.
Yeah, because it's such a fixable thing. Everyone I speak to now, if you're feeling the way you're feeling, you can talk to someone, because you don't have to. You don't have to feel like that. There are all kinds of ways of getting out of where you are now. But who wants to? I would not want to live my life the way I was living it in that year or two before I went on to antidepressants. It was horrible. I was horrible to be with. I was horrible as a human being. I was just horrible, and I was not enjoying life at all. It was a fixable thing, and it wasn't even that difficult. I do talk about the cure sometimes being almost as bad, because you do have to know when to come back out of it. And I didn't do a very good job of that, as we talked about before. But if you've got people around you, you've got family, you're a good partner, it's a very, very achievable thing. And it's just sad that there are so many people either suffering alone or in denial about it, or just too ashamed to talk about it, or to even go to the doctor about it. And they're living these difficult lives that absolutely doesn't need to happen.
Doesn't need to happen, no. And also, not only are they suffering, but they may be causing suffering. this is the root of violence, evil from time immemorial, right? It really is. I mean, it's so obvious that if we could just crack this from the core, things would get better generally.
Yeah, I think that all of what you two just said describes perfectly why we're doing this and I don't think. Well, it is a little bit of therapy for us as well. Not therapy, but it is obviously very, I don't know, inspiring to talk about mental health for both of us, because we are just, we've done so much work around it and on ourselves, and we're just really interested in the topic in general, because everyone's different and everyone experiences things a bit differently, and it's just really interesting. But the main thing, we wouldn't be doing this if we wouldn't also, learn from that and get closer with the people that join here and all of that. But the main thing really is just fucking talking about it. And
well, it's partly altruistic, it's partly selfish.
Yeah,
there is a selfish element to it, that you keep topping up the good stuff.
Yeah, we're such good people, right? Because we're doing this.
Yeah,
so we can feel good for the day.
It's a total ego fucking trip, this is.
Let's be honest.
But no, I mean, even if it was an ego trip, if people can benefit from it, does it matter?
No.
Okay, so let's move on.
Okay, next question.
Some more ego boosting, please.
All right. Let me see. I had some gathered here. Okay, here's a question by Bar Gonzalez.
Hello, Bar Gonzalez.
She says, living the dream, X and Gary together. My question is for you, dear Gary. You rocked my new wave and electro years back in time with your incredible music, and still today. Talking to you in person was one of the most exciting times of my life. Thanks 1,000 for this. My question is, becoming a husband, a father, did it help you overcome existential doubts? The death of a parent is also very difficult. How do you exercise the pain in your music? That's a lot of questions. Fax from an electric friend, Bar Gonzalez. But the first question, becoming a husband, a father, did it help you overcome existential doubts? I wonder if it was maybe the opposite.
In a way, yeah. No, it's becoming a husband made me feel more like a grown up. I've always had a hang up about being a man. The lyrics to my songs, well, way into my 40s, I would still refer to myself as a boy.
Interesting.
Because I just got this sort of hang up about not being manly enough to be a man. I talk about my dad, and it always gives the impression that my dad made me feel this way, and he absolutely didn't at all. My dad is amazing, and never made me feel anything like that. It was all in his head. So when I got married, so I'm waffling. When I got married, it was a proper grown-up thing to do. If you take it seriously,
a manly thing to do.
A manly thing to do. And I began to feel sort of quite manly, and I think that sort of shifted.
I love it.
It did. It shifted something in me a little bit. It did. I just felt more centered. Is such a horrible word, but you know that within you, comfortable within myself more. And then when the children come along, we had real problems having children. Raven, the first one, was IVF because we couldn't have children, and that was torturous. She was the first baby died, and I think it was the 7th attempt where Raven came along. So that was a long process of very painful, and again, very ups and downs and tragedy and so on. But having lived all through that, as a couple, admittedly, but you come out at the end of that and you're a very, very different person. The things that upset you before seem less important. You've experienced the sort of the raw edge of what life can throw at you. I think if you lose a child, it's horrible. And so it does shape you. But I think that's true of many things. You know, the ups and the downs of the lives that you live. I think the downs more than anything shape what you become. Yeah. And if you're reasonably decent as a human being, I think they tend to shape you for the better. Mm-hmm. If you're a little bit weaker, perhaps, then they can take you into a darker place of, you know, feeling like a victim and just being an arsehole all over the place. So I think I do think they changed me. Yes, whether it had an effect on the mental health part of me, certainly not the Asperger's part of me. I don't think. It's your thing about Asperger's. I mean, I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel that there are lots of behaviours that you don't understand instinctively or naturally, the way most people do, you know, eye contact and conversation, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But these are behaviours that if you're reasonably bright, you can learn. You can learn how to have a conversation. I clearly remember my dad asking me once about what a friend of mine did. I was in a flying team, and one of the other pilots in it, I've been in the team about a year, 2 years, and my dad said to me, "What did you do for a living?" I've got no idea. He said, "Well, how can you not know? You've known him for 2 years." I said, "Well, I've never asked." He said, "Why not?" I said, "Well, if he'd have wanted me to know, he would have told me." And he hasn't. So for me to ask him, that's kind of intruding. So that would make me rude.
That was the logic, yeah.
Yeah, my dad just laughed his head off and said, "Mate, you know, that's conversation. That's how you get to know people." Yeah. And now, the reason I point that one out is because I still remember to this day that when I meet people, when the first 2 or 3 sentences, I should probably ask what they do for a living. So it made an impact. You know, that one comment that my dad stuck with me forever, and many others that he said have as well. And so you can learn. It's not just the things that happen to you in your life that shape what you become, like getting married and having children, and they do. A lot of it is simply recognizing where your issues are and doing something about it. Learning.
Self-improvement.
I know that I'm not supposed to read a magazine if somebody comes over to visit because that's rude. I didn't.
Well, you do that when I visit.
Yeah, I don't like you.
Looking at you, Paul.
I do not.
No, you don't.
I don't do
You're
that.
very attentive, but I can see you're struggling.
Because you feel his pain.
I'm feeling your pain because I'm doing the same. I'm like, oh God, I've got to focus on him, focus on his eyes.
When you were at my place, we'd go out every evening. We'd talk for hours, didn't we?
Yeah.
About why everybody else was wrong.
Yep, absolutely. It was great. Yeah. Right? Me and Gary. And then Gemma would leave the table and we're still,
Well, Gemma and me talk to each other. The ADHD babes talk to each other.
Yeah, you go and kind of
in this annoying blab way that you guys can't take.
Yeah. Well, Gemma puts the TV on really loud.
Yeah. You're talking too much.
Yeah, but no, that was great. I fondly remember putting the world to rights.
Yeah, but I found that really useful. It's good to have someone that's got similar experiences and a similar attitude to life. You know, you can learn a lot. I learned a lot from talking to you. I loved it actually. It was really a good, happy time in my life when you were hanging around. I really liked it.
Maybe I'll come back and live there. Something like that.
Yeah, anytime, mate. Anytime.
You got to deal with teenagers, though, Chris.
Oh, teenagers!
Don't know if you can.
I don't recommend that.
That would be a struggle for me, I think. As much as I love them, still teenagers. They just it's such a difficult period, right? The in between child and adult.
For them, for them mostly.
Of course, confusion.
Huge amount of sympathy for what they're going through. It's very, very difficult for them, and so you just try to, for a lot of it, you are the punching bag that all their frustrations comes out on. But you understand that, and underneath that, if you can trust that there is a core of goodness. And decency. You can put up with all the adjustments that they're trying to make, and it's been so difficult this last year because of the pandemic. Imagine being a teenager and you can't go out.
Yeah.
Right
rough.
when you're supposed to be exploring and learning about relationships and having all that excitement of making all those mistakes, all the very things that are going to shape the adult that you become, and you're stuck at home with me.
Brilliant. Oh God, I bet you've become a really the punching bag must be, it's a great metaphor.
I'm gonna read another question here, and it's interesting because I actually wanted to go back to that. You said earlier that you had the panic attacks looking at old people and dealing with your own getting older, right? And I was wondering how you, if you're still struggling with that, or if you're, how you changed your approach to that. And there's someone here asked pretty much the same question. Miss Martian says, how do you cope with the fear of death, which is coming for us all eventually?
Thanks for that little reminder.
Yeah.
I cope with it very badly, actually, really badly. I'm not. In fact, I 3 or 4 nights ago, I'm laying down, going to sleep, and I started to think. Can't remember why. It just freaks me out so much. I have to get up, I have to read a book, I have to do something to take my mind off it, because it makes me properly anxious and it's horrible, man. I am not used to it. I've had conversations with my dad about it. How do you cope with it? I have got a terrible fear, not just of dying, but of just being old and waiting for all those horrible things that can come to older people. Your cancers and your heart disease, all these horrible things that we worry about. In fact, there's a song on the new album called "A Black Sun" that I co-wrote with Persia. Speaking again, and it's about how love changes when you're young. Love is it's an easy thing. The people that you love, they're not going to die anytime soon. Your friends aren't going to die anytime soon. The world is out there and it's exciting, and all this opportunity is just sitting there waiting for you to grow up and grow into it. So love is an easy, painless thing. When you're older, it's the opposite. You love people dearly, but you're terrified that something's going to happen to them. Every time Gemma's got this sort of MS shadow hanging over her. Every time something happens, she started to smell tobacco the other day when there wasn't any. The fear of something happening to that, because you love somebody very, very deeply, and it isn't forever. As you say, we're all going to die. So I have a real problem with that. On my own mortality, I'm a nightmare for being scared. Every headache is a brain tumor. Every stomach ache is a cancer. I'm useless. I'm desperately trying to find a way of becoming at peace with it. And more recently, actually, started to think about the concept that dark energy in the universe, it's a bit like the Force from Star Wars in a way, but not as interesting. But the idea that when we die, our soul becomes merged into dark energy, I find it actually quite comforting as a concept. Because I don't have religious, I don't believe in heaven, I don't believe in any of that. So for me, I've always thought, when we're dead, we're dead. But now it's getting closer. I'm not quite so.
You're looking for other ways out.
I mean, really, create your own religion there, Gary. It sounds like you've got something good going.
That's what we're working on, the cult of IAMX.
I mean, I think that the closest you can get is to practice on the isness or the impermanence of things. I mean, if you can spend your time in awe of just the fact that we exist, rather than the fact that you're going to stop existing, sort of refocusing and practicing. I guess that's something like Buddhism is rooted in that, but a better version of that is mindfulness, which takes the religious doctrine out of Buddhism, takes the best bits, cherry picks the best bits, and it's a constant sort of meditation on impermanence, how things change, how, you know, we're born, we die, we're born, we die, and in essence, if you want to get really sort of brutal about it, you know what death is like, because before you were born, you didn't exist. That's probably what it's going to be like, if you can get your head around that, which is just endless nothingness. But just the fact that we're, you know, consciousness might disappear, but the idea that we will become just part of the universe, which we already are anyway. It's this individualism that we kind of got to get over.
It's the change of state.
It's sort of like, and just I found that definitely mindfulness helps.
I saw a thing the other day. One of my kids was showing it, of a philosopher from some time ago, and he was talking about the way that we live our lives is always heading somewhere, you know, promotion, whatever, going somewhere. We're always on our way. You know, we're always looking for, we're going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And you don't live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about tomorrow and where we're going, and strategies and careers and so on. And I've been horribly guilty of living my life that way. And I'm really trying now to just spend more time in the moment, and just appreciate where I am in this moment, and not thinking about, well, tomorrow I've got to go back to the studio. You know, all those things that you know, is money getting tight because we haven't toured for a year and a half? All those worries.
Let's not go there. See, that's the thing not to talk about. Mental health is easy, right?
I mean, that you've just hit the nail on. I mean, that is what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is about practicing living in the present. So, you know, we run around our whole lives living in the past or the future, thinking about regretting what the fuck we did, and trying to deconstruct why we did it, and then worrying about what we're going to do in the future. And this is, you know, we've evolved that way. Our prefrontal cortex is masterful at planning. So, you know, we have that, but we also have this state of just existing, of being rather than doing, which is the living in the now. And this is what mindfulness practice is all about. It's bringing yourself into the moment and appreciating the moment in its beauty and in its ugliness, whatever it brings. And
that really will help with suffering. You know, that practice will make it much easier to appreciate, to find things to appreciate in moments where you're suffering, and ultimately in death as well. You know. It sounds so abstract right now when we're talking about it. We sometimes go a bit deeper into the topic, but what we both, I think, really like about mindfulness, and I know it's also a big part of the dialectic behavior therapy, is that it's scientifically studied, like, and you know that there's just a vast amount of evidence that it works, and even there is, you know, mindfulness meditation versus antidepressants, and mindfulness always wins, you know. But it just needs it's not natural for us to sit down and follow a guided meditation, even if it's just 10 minutes or so. So that's maybe the hardest thing about it, to get into it, a bit like, you know, training. Doing a workout every day or whatever. It's the same kind of thing.
It is exercising the muscle of the
exercise.
Mind. It really is, and it's there's many medical studies that can show the sort of redirection of attention in the brain in MRI scanners, and they've done tons of studies on Buddhist monks because they just happen to be the experts on mindfulness. Take out the religious part, but and if you can quantify a state of happiness, or at least a state of well-being or balance or peace, it's much more amplified in the brains of Buddhists. Yeah. And this is based on mindfulness
Buddhist
practice.
Monks, so the ones that meditate a lot, yeah.
It just shows you the sort of correlation between mindfulness meditation and well-being. It improves focus. It improves many parts of life. Compassion. There's lots of studies on meditation on compassion of others, so that you can reduce depression and anxiety by focusing on giving to others, altruism, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of study in that. There's a great clinic started by a guy called John Kabat-Zinn, who is sort of the guru. No, I'm not going to use that word. Terrible. Is the originator of mindfulness in practice in sort of the medical scientific community in the West. He started this clinic in the 70s and 80s called the MBSR clinic, which basically he picked up all the people that had fallen through the healthcare net of the American healthcare net that were uncurable, terminal diseases, things like that were suffering immeasurably. Yeah. And they couldn't, people couldn't do anything for them. So he had this clinic, which is for those people, and it was all based on mindfulness practice. And there's many studies about it improved their mental strength, their peace, their happiness, their well-being in states of unimaginable suffering. So it's definitely a way in to dealing with something like the fear of death.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any coping strategies? Because you said you obviously found the way that'll help being more in the moment, right? But how do you do it?
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Really, for me, I've only recently, very recently, even been aware of it. To me, my whole life has been one of going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Getting somewhere, being more than you are now, being, and then as a family, children come along, and then you start to think the same way, but for them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do? How can you make their lives better? And so it's always been about trying to achieve and get somewhere, because that seems important.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm thinking, maybe the best thing I can possibly do for the children is just to be there.
Yeah.
Listen and I'm very sort of hands-on dad, and we are a very close family, spend a lot of time together anyway. But have I, by the way I live my life, instilled in them that same desire to want to go out and take on the world and do what you can,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm feeling, oh God, I'm not sure that's what I should have done.
Mm-hmm.
Really, should that be is that the thing that you want them to be inspired by? Well, actually, no, I don't think it is now.
That's interesting.
I've kind of done it, because they're already there. They want to be singers, they want to be famous, they want to do the Staples Center, and
might just be a phase.
I don't think so.
But I wonder if I've already, by example, I've already sent them in a way that I'm now beginning to realise perhaps isn't the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I've already done the damage. So, if there is a way that I can come to understand this better, and therefore, relay it to them in a way that makes sense before it's too late, then I would like to.
Mm. Yeah. I'm sure you still can. You can. They as you said, you spend a lot of time together. You're very close. So, and they're still young, so they will for sure feel it if you find a new approach to life, to them, to if they tell you something and you fully listen. I know you already do that, though. You do give them a lot of attention, but I know what you mean. There's always this this thing in the back of our minds. I gotta do this, or I have to be this person, or I want to improve this little character or whatever, right? It's very easy. It comes very easy. I know.
I think
but I think it's amazing you're thinking about those things. It's very inspiring to hear that.
I think we're ambitious by nature. It's why we're here. It's why we're talking on this thing and somebody else isn't. You put yourself in a position. You work for that, and so it's in the nature. It's our nature to look at the world and try to sort of navigate the best path through it for you and where you want to go and what you want to be ultimately. So there's a fair amount of undoing required to be able to look at the world a different way. And I really am. I'm just knocking on the door. That's all. I'm not even telling.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting. It's a really deep philosophical question to bring up, though, because does it have to be one or the other, or is it a dance? You bring in the best element when you can. You bring in the passion when you can, and it's very tempting to just say, well, all we want is happiness. So, you know what? Take the stress out. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to sit in my arse. But that's not happiness. So you still need the passion and the drive, but you just need to balance it with being in the moment as well.
And that's the thing. It's that balance, because there's a huge amount of happiness comes from achievement. If that is your entire life, if that's all you think about, if that's what you think about when you go to sleep, if that's what wakes you up in the morning, probably too much. Probably going to achieve a lot, but
are you happy?
It'll stop having meaning.
You've missed out on so many other things that life had to offer. So I'm very keen now to explore that anyway.
It's interesting that you say that there's a lot of undoing needs to be done, because we always talk about or imagine what it would have been like to be educated as a kid in school, say in mindfulness, in being in the moment, in different ways of approaching other people, and those kinds of talk, even just fucking talking about feelings, or feeling what's inside and what does it do with me and why. And just imagine that would be just a normal part with all the other things too,
my kids go to a Waldorf school, Steiner school.
Okay.
So it's quite a different sort of education anyway, and it definitely focuses on creative arts and expression. It doesn't have that math English hierarchy, where math is everything, and expression, drama, is way down the bottom. It doesn't have that, so I think that's a very good thing. But I still don't see a great deal of mindfulness. To be fair, I mean, there's virtually no bullying. It's very peaceful. We had a phone call a while back because one of our kids had apparently done something just terrible. We had to go down to school. We've really got a huge problem, and you got to come here. And Eka, my youngest, had walked through the vegetable plot. That was it. I thought we should stab someone.
Taking after a dad. Fucking rebel.
So I thought that was great. That school saw that. It was like a really, really bad thing. So I'm all
Times
right.
have changed.
That's all right.
I'm all right with that. That's cool. So they're in the right place. So I think at the moment they're probably as close to mindfulness as you can get in that particular school, but it is not what you're talking about. And
it's not.
There is so much more that could be done, but it needs such a fundamental rethink of what education is all about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the quote by John Kabat-Zinn of how he always talks about how kids, well, there is no quote, I'm just going to tell you what he says, how kids are told to pay attention. It's like, boy, pay attention. Well, you have to teach them and how to pay attention. That's what mindfulness is all about, paying attention to being in the moment, to your body, to listening to others. To how can they know? They don't know. So you're just telling them that it's just traumatic. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, you're probably right. I think that your school is the closest you'll get to something mindful.
But the thing I like about it is it encourages them to stay children for longer.
Right.
So their exposure to media is very, very limited, frowned upon. Even down to the sorts of toys. They don't like plastic toys. They need to be wooden, and it all sounds very hippy dippy, go hug a tree shit when you hear about it, but it actually isn't. It's really lovely and it's really gentle, and I think it really does help to make nicer people.
Yeah,
I really do. Wouldn't always think that when I'm being treated like a punching bag, but I think,
imagine what they'd be like if they didn't go there.
Oh yeah.
Little devils.
I love it. Okay, well, we're getting to the end, but maybe we do one more question and then wrap it up.
I'm
you guys up for
absolutely. You okay there, Gary?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. There are a lot of music questions, which is not really the right place here.
Yeah,
a lot of good questions.
Anything about that?
We have 45 more questions. Okay, let's do this one. This is by James Howard. He says, our 30-year-old son has anxiety and bipolar. While this is very difficult for all of us to navigate and support him, it seems to grant him creativity, unusually perspicacious observation skills. I don't know what that
I don't know that word.
Okay. Well, let's say unusual, great observation skills, I guess, and the ability to make associative connections we would not readily see. Have abilities like that played a part in Gary's long-enduring creativity? I guess we kind of already answered that one, right?
Yes, but they do, but I think it's a good point. In that quite a lot of conditions, mental health conditions, have a silver lining. I think if by being with me, for example, I'm not very good. I don't interact very well. I'm not very good at. I have no social skills to speak of, really. I've learned some over the years, but as a core to me, I'm rubbish at that. But I've got all this other stuff that I can do. So it takes a little bit from here, gives you a whole load there. Yeah. I can't speak, as a scientist about whether that applies to all mental health conditions, but I am aware that there are several people that I'm aware of that I know that suffer in one way or another, that have all got extraordinary skills in other areas, way and above what the average would be. So I do tend to believe that although it can be difficult in some areas, it kind of pays you back in others. You just need to find what those others are.
Yeah. That's the work.
This is the key, because you can have a very unhappy life if you don't love what you do, right? Yes. Particularly with these conditions, it can be just compounded by doing a shit job that you don't like. But you can excel if you find your calling.
It's one of the reasons we try to travel as much as we do with the children and expose them to as much of the world as we possibly can, not just geographically, but in the cultures and different things that it can do. Because I'm very aware that there are a great many people in the world that never find the gift that they were born with, and go through life, in trouble or, just not happy. Yeah. And yet in there was the extraordinary ability to paint or to sing or whatever it might be. Singing is an obvious one, but and it doesn't have to be creative arts necessarily. It can be anything.
No.
But there are, it seems such a shame that these people have lives that don't expose them to the talent that sits in them. And it's just waiting for that spark, that moment of recognition, that trip down to the beach, and they suddenly find something and they're off.
Yeah,
they find a bit of driftwood and whittle a battleship out of it, and all of a sudden there's this whole thing going on. And they would never have found that if it hadn't been for that trip to the beach or a trip to Bangkok or whatever. So I just think traveling is a really good way of doing something to exposing people to other things that the world has to offer.
Yeah.
So it's just one of the things that you can do. But so anyway, sorry to get back to.
I mean, that's the thing. Oh, sorry, you didn't answer the question.
No, I did. Yeah, it's okay.
I mean, we just we're perpetuating this a bland blanket society, and it's so obvious that people yearn to do what they want, to do what they love. But consumerism and the way that the world works has just kind of flattened those ambitions in people, and that's probably why we're ending up with so much mental health challenges in the modern age. It would be nice if we could kind of shift into another gear and start to kind of offer people more room to explore their loves. Particularly in education. I mean, that's what I love about the Waldorf schools is that they have that sort of open-minded approach, and they're not just kind of bashing them killing them with maths and physics and stuff.
There's a brilliant TED talk. I can't remember the man's name, unfortunately, but it's a brilliant talk, and he talks about the hierarchy of education and how all human beings are born inventive and creative and imaginative. And our school system, such as it is, effectively squeezes that out. So by the time we finish school, all that imagination, all that freedom to just want to do things and throw stuff in the walls and see what happens, that's all gone. It's all about career and maths and promotion and all that. And so our system of education takes away the things that we were born with, which are all incredibly useful, and replaces them with this artificial idea of what we need to do with our lives. And so you don't have mindfulness, and people that are creative often succeed despite the system that we're born into, the hurdles that are put against us to get somewhere. You do it because you've managed to retain this drive, this imagination, this creativity that people made fun of you at school or beat you up at school because all that. I had one of the first proper jobs I ever had was at a place called W.H. Smith. Worked in a warehouse for a bit, and all the people there were transient. I might have told you this before actually, but we were all sitting around one day talking about what we were going to do with our lives, and it went round, and the man that I joined with, his life ambition was to be the foreman of that warehouse. That was it. And it came to me and they said, what do you want to do? He said, I want to be a pop star. And this man, this warehouse manager to be, got so angry, he was going to hit me. And I had to be stopped by the others. What's your problem, man?
You blew his mind.
But how? Because he said it was unrealistic and I was living in a dream world. What the fuck's it got to do with you? Where I'm living?
He's eating his fucking words now, right, Gary?
Do you know, he's probably manager. He's probably foreman of that warehouse and very, very happy.
Hopefully he's happy. Exactly.
See, that's the thing. Maybe he was actually very passionate about that. That was his talent.
Yeah, but
managing W.H. Smith.
Do you know what I mean? It's just strange, isn't it, that you should be sort of attacked for wanting something. But then again, that goes against this thing about living in the now. I was thinking, got to get something. Got to get something. So I am torn with this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's understanding that it's not black and white. Otherwise, you just go and sit in the field.
It's what you said before. It's that balance.
Yeah.
That's the key to everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
On that note, shall we release the beast?
Go back to my wife beating. Then.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm not going to say anything there.
Yeah, this is a public talk, guys.
I forget. I'm getting so relaxed here.
Uh-huh.
This could go on for hours and hours and hours. We should do this again, right? I mean, this is just great.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not busy.
Yeah. Aren't you supposed to be? No, you just finished the album, right? Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
And I think you might actually be coming over here quite soon. We might be doing something again.
Yeah.
We'll see about that.
Yeah.
You guys out there will have to wait.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure, as always. I love you. I think you're fucking awesome.
Oh, thank you. You too.
And do you want to wrap it up?
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Wrap
Say
it up.
something amazing right now on the spot.
Okay, join us on Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
Patreon.com/IAMX.
And Gary's also got.
And what is your address? Patreon.com/
Gary Numan.
Gary Numan. There you go. Very simple. So
Strangely enough,
Gary has a Patreon page. We have a Patreon page, and we finance this podcast with our Patreon page. So if you want to support us or Gary, go there. Get your asses over there.
Fiercely independent people that hate the music industry, come to us.
Yes, do it. Or not. Or just join here.
Or not.
We'll here next time. Yeah. That's also okay. It's free. But we're grateful if you support us and join. And that's the deep shit I have to say at the end of
that
the
was just
podcast.
So moving.
Oh, also this is going to be an audio podcast soon. So you can rewatch this video, but